listeners, I see Michael already smiling. He anticipates what I will say. My good friend.
And I put my head on a block, and I offer Mr. Brother Bishop the scalpel to cut it off.
The political leader has said several times up to last night that is not a reflection of her personal views or the views of the party. And you understand, George, how elections at the party level work.
So, Dr. Pei, do you have ties? Do you have ties to the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Pei? Or rather, were you commissioned by the NDC to do the poll?
Information because it seems interesting that a lot of your advice is very consistent with what was said. Brilliant.
And good luck with everything.
You too, man. May the best candidate win in the town of St. George.
But kill on.
Yes.
You is a tongue man too, so stop at that. Tell everybody you are a tongue man too.
We are a people who have always aspired for more, who've always aspired to do better, who've always accepted that not because your mother didn't go to secondary school, you should go. It has always been the other way around. You should aspire.
You've been there for a long time. Want to be queen of St. Andrews, but yet the problems around you you're not seeing. You can't pray yourself out of the problems in St. Andrews.
Some persons were getting pension after 2 terms in office, right? And the persons that work for 26 years plus not getting anything. It's just unfair.
God is good, and God looks after me. Not just my wife is no longer here, so both herself and the father up there are looking after me very, very well indeed.
Not a few people that you pick up by the side of the road to run in an election. These are not people that you mustered up and you pull together a few months before you think an election is going to call, and you say, we want to win an election, so let's come together.
Tell as a commissioner of police, tell the politician, back off. You have no knowledge of the law. You have no knowledge of law enforcement. You cannot force my officers to do the wrong thing.
But that is somebody's son. That is somebody's child. That is part of a family. And I think that is the part that they are missing out.
Because E and F are apt to be used oppressively.
It's like because we don't see disabled people as sexual beings, which is ridiculous.
You mean they don't want to listen to your version of science? They have their own science. You have your science.
What we need to do is teach people to think and not what to think.
Today, stood by that. Everybody do what they want.
If I could forgive Bernard Ford, then I could forgive Bob Morris too. And today, on this day, I no more have anything in my heart for what he did.
The education system has to be very fluid and dynamic because we're living in very different and changing times.
Treating all your citizens equally, all your citizens fairly, recognizing each group, not discriminating against one or the other.
Hello, everyone, and we welcome you to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb. We do apologize for the late start this week as our first guest, he is running late and he will be joining us shortly. So that is the reason why we started just a bit late today, so we do apologize for that. Of course, before we get into this week's editorial, we want to take this opportunity to wish the national community, the fathers, today a happy Father's Day. We trust that you will be treated well today as fathers by the family. Of course, you form a critical and integral component in the structure of the family. So we want to salute all fathers in the national community and, of course, the fathers in the Grenadian diaspora. We also want to use this opportunity to extend our condolences to the children, to Michael Blaze Robertson and his siblings on the passing of their dearly beloved mother. We here at the Bubb Report extend our deepest condolences to the family members on her passing, and may she rest in peace and may her memory be a blessing. And finally, of course, we saw last week the very sad, very touching homegoing service, homegoing celebration of life, really, for Wellington Wello Welsh of Victoria in St. Mark. We here at the Bubb Report wishes to join the national community in extending our condolences to his family and, of course, to his extended family. Of course, as we saw, Mr. Welsh had such a vast and outsized contribution that he made in the Victoria community, on the cultural landscape in the Victoria community, and as a community activist as well, and as someone who really cared for his community. So, of course, we know that incident was extremely tragic, and we are calling for justice to be served. Justice needs to be served in this case, and the people responsible for, and the person responsible, allegedly responsible for this man's death, must be held accountable. Let this not be another Oscar Bartholomew situation that just drags on and on and on and on. And of course, as we saw in the history of the Oscar Bartholomew case, that matter dragged on so much that it traumatized Oscar's mother, who went to an early grave. She went to an early grave without seeing justice for her son. That is someone who I knew very well in the Latant community. So I really hope that this does not go down the same road as the Oscar Bartholomew matter at all. It should not. And Mr. Wellington Welsh must receive justice. As a matter, of course, you know, there is a saying that justice should not only be done, but justice must also be seen to be done. And we really are rooting now for the judicial system in Grenada to ensure that Wello receives justice, because clearly this was an unspeakable and unjustifiable death in that Victoria community. Of course, today is Father's Day. Wello's children will not have their father to celebrate Father's Day with, and that must be such a heart-wrenching thing to have to experience. So I just thought I would say that. Of course, before I get to the editorial, finally, the Media Workers Association of Grenada, they're celebrating Media Week this week, and I just want to read a statement in part issued by President Calistro Faria. It says, fellow media professionals, partners in democracy, and citizens of Grenada, as we observe Media Week 2025, we do so at a time when the lines between journalism and advocacy, information and opinion, truth and noise are increasingly blurred. While our broader theme for the observance of Media Week is Media Workers Association of Grenada advancing with purpose on the pathway to greater inclusion for growth and development, I wish to focus on our role as guardians of truth, journalism in the age of noise. In this digital age, where anyone with a smartphone can publish, podcast, or live stream to the world, it is more important than ever to reaffirm what sets journalists apart. Journalists are not simply content creators or passionate voices behind a microphone. We are trained to seek facts, verify sources, present multiple sides, and hold power to account, regardless of where that power lies. We do not speak only for ourselves and our causes. We speak on behalf of the public's right to know and to be informed, as well as to be empowered by the information that is accurate, fair, and independently sourced. Activist podcast hosts may shape conversations, bring visibility to social issues, and contributes to public discourse. Now, she says these are worthy contributions to a vibrant democracy, but activism and journalism are not the same. And of course, the statement goes on, and at the end of the statement, the Media Workers Association says this: let Media Week be more than a celebration. Let it be a recommitment to mentoring the next generation of journalists, to defending media freedom, and to fostering a culture of journalism that uplifts democracy, not dilutes it. We are not entertainers. We are not influencers. We are journalists. And for our role as guardians of the truth has never been more urgent and more necessary. Happy Media Week to all undersigned Callistra Farrier. And of course, folks, we are now going to get into the editorial. And if you're just joining us, please make sure to like and share this week's live stream so others can have an opportunity to participate in this week's program. It doesn't take much, just hit the like button. If you're over on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button as well. Now, for the editorial of the week. Now, in the last 2 weeks, Minister Andy Williams has come under fire from political commentator and friends of NNP's St. David caretaker, Jenny Simon. Now, the former Women's NDC president and popular talk show commentator alleges that the MIT minister may have accepted a bribe from a private contractor in exchange for curry favoring at the Cliff Road project in Woburn, St. George. But of course, this is not the first time a Grenadian politician has been accused of misbehavior in public office. The year was 1962, and a commission of inquiry was set up by British colonial administrator at the time, James Lloyd, to inquire into the spending of public funds in January 1961 by then Finance Minister Premier Eric Gairy. Now, the commission found that Gairy totally disregarded spending limits as required by law. Examples of Gairy's unauthorized and extravagant spending included the unauthorized refurbishment of the Prime Minister's residence at Mount Royal at a whopping cost of $17,000 without the approval of the Tenders Board. They also found that Gairy purchased the infamous piano costing $3,500, a radiogram costing $1,450, and a radio. Now, additionally, there were countless cases where payments amounting to thousands of dollars were made gratuitously to Gairy's friends and supporters, and unnecessarily so. Now, lastly, there were instances of questionable expenditure involving the purchase of lands from the Barida estate, the purchase of lifeboats, cement, cold storage facilities, and the insurance of government vehicles, or rather the double insurance of government vehicles. Now, finally, the commission concluded that Sir Eric Gairy disregarded and contravened the laws and regulations governing the control of expenditure in Grenada. The British administrators subsequently suspended Gairy and barring him from running for public office until the 1967 general elections. Now, the caveat here, however, is that the British colonizers at the time were also doing everything in their power to restrain an insurgent trade unionist who years prior led a general strike protesting the deplorable conditions of the Grenadian estate worker. Of course, that general strike led to Grenada's very first revolution, the Sky Red Revolution in 1951. Now, fast forward to 2004, and former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell was also accused by the blog Offshore Alert of receiving a cash bribe of $500,000 from U.S. conman Eric Resteiner in return for appointing him to a diplomatic position. Now, Mitchell admitted to receiving cash from Resteiner, but claimed that it was only about $14,000 US, and it was for reimbursement for expenses in relation to a European trip that Dr. Mitchell undertook at the time. Now, a U.S. Department of Justice source in 2004 told Offshore Alert that Resteiner had shown U.S. agents an alleged tape recording of him bribing Mitchell in the hope of receiving leniency on fraud charges that he faced at a federal court in Massachusetts. Of course, a commission of inquiry was set up in Grenada to look into the allegation against Dr. Mitchell of receiving an alleged bribe in a briefcase and cleared Mitchell of any wrongdoing at the time. In fact, history would also show that Dr. Mitchell sued the parties involved in accusing him of receiving that $500,000 bribe. Famously, the editor of the New Today newspaper, Mr. George Worm, what also was part of a class action libel lawsuit that Dr. Mitchell brought against him for alleging that he received this money. And of course, Dr. Mitchell also famously said at the time, quote, "Is Madame money, and I'm only sorry they didn't give me more." And of course, the opposition, NDC at the time, used that briefcase matter as fodder against Dr. Mitchell, political fodder, of course. Now, in the case of Williams versus Simon, will there be another commission of inquiry? We here at the Bubb Report will be continuing to watch the space. Folks, stay with us. We'll be back for the very first segment of the program. A very important conversation on proposed travel bans to the region by the Trump regime in Washington. So you want to stay tuned for that conversation. Please stand by.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We're happy that you can stay with us. And for the first segment of our program, we want to treat with a very important breaking news development as published by the Washington Post. The Washington Post published this item last evening. Of course, we have to caveat this by saying that there has been no official word from the regime in Washington, but of course this is an issue that we believe needs a critical attention should in the unlikely event or in the event that it happens. So last evening, the Washington Post reported that the regime in Washington is considering implementing expanded travel restrictions to 36 more countries, including 4 OECS member states. Now, the memo, which the Washington Post claims to have seen and signed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and sent to U.S. diplomats on the 14th of June, states that the governments of the listed nations have 60 days to meet new requirements established by the State Department. The State Department alleges that some of these countries mentioned above, including OECS countries, have not met various benchmarks, such as no competent or cooperative central government authority to provide reliable identity documents, or a large number of citizens who have violated the terms of their visas. However, the memo included a caveat that if a country is willing to accept third country nationals who are being removed from the United States, it would ease other concerns. Now, of course, the countries included on that expanded travel ban list that the Washington Post is purported to see are 4 OECS countries, including Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia and Antigua and Barbuda. I believe I said that. Now, here to make sense of this issue, of course, is immigration attorney Mr. Roland Otley, who is joining us for a second time on the Bubb Report. Mr. Otley, if you can turn your camera on. There you are, sir. Good morning and welcome to the Bubb Report. We do thank you for making time on such short notice to speak with us, given this updated breaking news development that I shared with you. And of course, the caveat here is that there has been no official confirmation from Washington or from member states, the member states who might be potentially impacted by this. But let us assume for the sake of argument that this might in fact be going through. What we're here to talk about are the implications of this. So, Mr. Otley, welcome to the Bubb Report, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for having me today.
Yes.
And happy Father's Day to you and all of the listeners out there. This is another one of those immigration policies that really will affect immigrant communities nationwide because of the large the number of Caribbean countries that have been disclosed in this leaked memorandum. Now, what would likely be the consequences of this? There are many. I would say the fear in these communities of not being able to travel, when you look at the specific design of the particular or the response of the Trump administration's policies and a full ban on Haiti. So Haiti won't receive any kind of immigration, non-immigrant visas as well as immigrant visas. And they really hasn't been processing these visas over some time already because of the chores in the country. And yes, it's also a question of whether they have a true centralized government authority to provide identification and to aid the U.S. in immigration enforcement. They also, the Trump administration did also assess that Haiti has a high, they gave a number of 31% overstay for their visas. I didn't see any other numbers for the other countries, but the other countries, though, that have a partial ban, Venezuela and Cuba, they give reasons for those bans. Now, the bans in the particular Caribbean islands, Dominica, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, and Bermuda, these countries, they're looking at the country's citizenship by investment programs, which
you mean Antigua and Barbuda. I just wanted to correct you. You said Bermuda. Bermuda is, yes. Antigua and Barbuda. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So, with those countries, I'm not really familiar with the citizenship by investment programs in these countries. But, having those types of visas, it would prevent those in the U.S. who would ordinarily be using them to enter into those particular Caribbean countries as citizens to not be able to travel. And therefore, those countries will have to deal with the loss of the investments and the spending that those with the citizenship by investment visa holders would have been able to otherwise provide them. And we don't have numbers to see how this would actually affect these nations from an economic standpoint. It might take some time. And there are other hurdles too with this type of ban that Trump has implemented in attempting to challenge it. And so you're going to have to challenge it in a different manner, which may be more complicated or more difficult and so forth. But the other part of this is that this leaked memo put this information out to the public even before the governments of those countries had an opportunity to respond or to develop their response to this ban once it would, once it may have been announced. I don't know how soon they would have actually done so. But
yes, sir. I just want I want you to stick a pin there, because one of the issues that you reference here is CBI. Do we know that they're doing this because of CBI? Because the Washington Post indicated in the article that it's based on a metric of overstay of visas by those residents in the United States, those who are there on any manner of visa, whether it's F1, whether it's visitors visa, whatever visa that these countries have. But also they mentioned in this memo, which I found very interesting, a lack of central government. What does that even mean? I mean, you know, the Dominica, Antigua, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, they have proper functioning governments. So, I don't even know what that means.
Well, I mean, that would depend on the language of this proclamation, and you know, and what it specifically says. It's one thing about what it says. There may be another thing in terms of how it actually works, and the foreseen and maybe the unforeseen consequences of it. So you may have to kind of let it play out to kind of see what would be the best way to approach attacking it. So, you know, that's one aspect of it. But depending on how they're gonna, you know, define, you know, not a lack of a central government. I mean, you know, they could do that in different ways. I mean, they could do that because the parties of the government are not unified. If something like this doesn't get addressed, and the country has to, you know, absorb the loss, then the country and the people of the country should respond to that. So those responses, you know, maybe after shows like this that may inform those citizens of those affected countries, may then inform us as to how people actually feel about this. See, because it's yes, part of it is, like, at least for Haiti, I didn't see the numbers for the other countries, but in any event, Cuba and Venezuela don't have a full ban. Haiti does. These other countries that we're talking about in the Caribbean, I don't know if they have provided any numbers for those countries to assess what are their overstay rate when they are given visas. Okay, so I don't know why those countries would have been selected. I don't know what other Caribbean countries have these CBI programs.
Well, Grenada does, and Grenada is not on the list. You know, at least Grenada is not on that list. We don't know what that might be looking like in the future. But let us talk big picture here. Let us get down to brass tacks with respect to the implications, the consular implications of this for these countries, if in fact this is implemented. And again, I just want to continue to emphasize the caveat here is that this is a leaked memo that the Washington Post was able to see. So this is a story that we will continue to follow through on. But what will be the consular implications? So is it a case that they will not be processing? So let's say right now, international students from the Caribbean probably might have received the F1 student visa packages, and they're going to the embassies for their interviews and so on now to get those student visas. With a travel ban implemented, what are those consular implications? Who would be able to travel, who would not be able to travel? So, for example, if you currently have a visa, if you're currently in possession of a U.S. visa, will you be able to travel to the United States under this travel ban consideration? What would that look like, sir, in your experience as an attorney?
Well, it would depend on how they implement it. Now, what the Trump administration has done is to remove visas, whether they are humanitarian visas or not. he's done things to limit the amount of people who are able to get into the United States. All right, and he has done so, and I guess you would agree with me, in certain demographics of applicants. Now, when you see the way that he has severely limited opportunities to get into the United States, what it does for him in providing him with leverage is that because of these limited avenues of entry, individuals from certain countries, and if you start banning them now, you sort of identify them as particular countries that are either not desirable or they're a security risk and so forth and so on. And that's one of the reasons they argue against those countries with the citizenship by investment, because they're not able to identify those individuals and to know who they are, so that United States government and whoever else can easily identify them. So for them, that's definitely one of the risks that they would have. Now,
I think we lost your camera there. I think we lost Mr. Oakley there. Oh,
okay.
You're back, sir. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So what that forces the population to do that wants to come into the United States is to come in through illegal means. And in coming in that way, they face harsher and more expedited means of removal. Okay. The others that are here in the United States over the longer time, maybe another year and a half of Trump administration, the process of getting a green card may be extremely more difficult. It's really just a matter of time. So the other thing too with these countries that offer the citizenship by investment is that the U.S. immigration enforcement is telling them that if they do not implement these things, if they do not accept deportees, even from countries, not theirs, the particular Caribbean island would then be the only way for them to comply sufficiently so that this travel ban will not be implemented. So they're either going to have to implement those particular requirements, or they're going to have to allow the United States to send their deportees to those countries if that was maybe the last place, other place than the United States that the deportee is coming from or travel to. So, that's likely what would happen if one of those two things don't resolve this. And for each one of those countries, the economic fallout of it, and those people with the citizenship by investment who would otherwise be traveling, I don't know how much that would impact them, that they would complain about it, but certainly those in the Caribbean islands would definitely complain. And basically that's what it does, and it then puts them in a situation where they have no other way of entering into the United States other than the wrong way. And the administration is right there waiting for them. I mean, and this is going on in other countries as well. There's 36 additional countries on that list. We're talking about 4 of them in the Caribbean. I mean, so there's much larger, effect of this particular policy from this memo.
So again, let us talk about the potential economic fallout, what that would mean for the Caribbean, especially for the OECS. Of course, the OECS is heavily tourism dependent, right? A lot of traffic, a lot of air traffic that emanates into the OECS comes from the North American market. Do you think that that will have a ripple effect on travel and tourism?
Well, I think it will have some effect, but I think there's also a mechanism in place in the Caribbean to monitor and record the changes in their tourism activity on an annual basis. And I think that's what we have to look at. And I'm sure that the history of taking this, monitoring this information should already show that when Trump was in office, what did the tourism situation look like in the Caribbean? I mean, I didn't look at the numbers, so I really don't know. But you know, I'm sure those numbers are available to see what the economic impact would be. But from an immigration policy standpoint, you would expect those numbers to be actually negative numbers. However, just like how people are doing things to enter into the United States, as dangerous as it may be, you know, to go someplace to, you know, really enjoy yourself in a country where they don't have that high surveillance, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be much easier for one to want to do that, and the tourism activity in the country may not change even with these policies.
Right, very well, very well. So that is something. Now, of course, Mr. Otley, outside of this new travel ban announcement by the Washington Post that is coming down the pike, we have seen the space very inhumane mass deportation efforts that has been targeting mostly Black and brown communities in the United States. They're actually going to immigration court where people have immigration hearing for various asylum or adjustment of status claims and things like that. And we are seeing what that is doing. And of course, that has driving fear into immigrant communities. But I would say this, we are not seeing the same measure of enforcement in white European immigrant communities in the United States. I wonder if the same is happening in Brighton Beach and Coney Island and Bell Park and other white immigrant neighborhoods, for example, the state of New York. So I want you to comment on that spate of mass immigration raids that the regime has really turned into a reality show, if you think about it, because they have people like the unqualified so-called psychologist, not Dr. Oz, it's the other one. But can you talk about how that is affecting Caribbean communities in New York?
Well, overall, it's going to be a very negative effect. It's going to raise all kinds of fear, which it already has. You're looking at it from a narrow perspective of just immigration, but the rest of the world is looking at it as, you know, mass confusion. And the last time that I appeared, our colleague, Mr. Thomas, spoke of how the United States would use different mechanisms to coerce foreign governments into accepting deportees. Now, this is a known tactic that's used. So these particular things with these Caribbean countries, basically the Trump administration is finding all various avenues and various programs of any sort to try to limit illegal immigrant migration into the country. I mean, some of it you could see, okay, if people are coming in and it may be a way for them to easily get into the country, you know, in doing this citizenship by visa application, because I really don't know how it works. But if that's really a security risk, then they're addressing it. And for their supporters, that's what they expect for them to do. Now, the way that they do it and the people that it affects is another thing. And we would have to show, because what the Trump administration is saying, and at least in terms of Haiti, the 30% incidence of visa overstay as a reason and also the disarray of the government and so forth, another big reason for a complete ban. Okay, and while these other two countries have a partial ban. Now, when we look at other countries, European countries and white countries, wherever, and we could then really be able to determine how much do these countries population of people overstay for their visas when they're granted visas, and see what the numbers look like, and see if in fact the government is justified in the actions that they're taking. So some of these things right from the outset, you can see that they're just unconstitutional, they're just wrong, and you could aggressively attack them. But other implementations may take time to develop for you to see that it's working an injustice on a particular population as opposed to some others. And and to be able to develop that whole argument may take time. But the opposition forces against what Trump is trying to do, in particular in immigration, they're prepared and they're ready to do what needs to be done. They may be at this point overwhelmed and may need some additional help, but they're fighting Trump on all of these issues all of the time. And in terms of these bans, there's I think it's U.S. versus Hawaii. There was a case the Supreme Court gave Trump more legal ability to impose bans and so forth. So that makes it challenging or even more challenging to attack some of his other ban policies. Now, how exactly we could try to make this any better, I really don't know at this time, and people are just going to have to adapt to the changes as they start to emerge, and try to do their best. It would take time before we would be able to process what's going on, to be able to give real proper advice. We did speak about the last time as well of Trump utilizing the military to enforce immigration, and we're hearing reports of how the military is expected or has been used in California, and now, which I don't think we had before, we're having city by city protest about the deportation policies. People are protesting about this very early out, and I think it's going to get more attention and more support as some of these rollouts from the Trump administration are disclosed to us.
Yeah, and of course we know that the Supreme Court has inadvertently ruled in favor of Trump on several of his immigration policies as well. So I'm not too sure that people are optimistic that the court would perform its function as a separate and co-equal branch of government in the context of the constitutional, and I use close quotes here, makeup of the United States. Now, for folks in the Caribbean, in the immigrant Caribbean communities in New York, whether they're here in Maryland, of course, what advice do you have as an attorney for those who might be in the process of adjusting their status, who might be out of status but have no criminal record, and who might face that kind of crackdown that we are seeing?
Well, they have to stay optimistic. They have to seek out information and they have to follow that information, understand it, and ask questions and be very diligent on a regular basis. This is not something that you just do one time. You have to continue to do it. As long as the Trump administration is in effect, there's going to be an upscale of immigration enforcement, both externally from people entering into the country, as well as internally in trying to get people in the country out of the country. And that's just going to get more and more intense, and you really have to prepare for it. Just like with the registration for aliens in the United States, where they're making that a crime to have not registered, even though you're over 14 and you've been in the country for more than 30 days. There was an initial challenge to it, which the administration was successful with, and the policy now continues in effect. So once again, these are the kind of things that they're doing in terms of actually using some immigration policies in a way to sort of criminalize it, to then be able to bring in the military, criminalize it in a way to impose a harsher penalty, criminalize it to make it easier for them to deport the individual. Right now, even with that registration thing still going into effect, I'm not sure where we are with the latest approach to try to prevent it from being implemented or continued. That would have to also be, an ongoing process as well, because once it starts, that's going to be another issue in terms of what then happens. I mean, are the police going to be able to run up on anyone that looks Caribbean and and force them to have their green card on them or some other paper on them? I mean, what requirements will be needed? These are things that organizations would need to sit down with the government and determine what these things will be. What should people expect if they have to really deal with this? What can they do? Now, the way that things are being done, it seems to be so difficult that you can't really have any productive discussion of how to lower or to potentially lower Trump's number of deportees. So it may be that he doesn't even want anyone to know. He doesn't want any organization or anyone to provide any information to immigrants so that they can't prepare and they're just easily removed. I mean, I don't know where this is going. We'll really just have to keep a close eye on it and do as much as we can from a legal point of view, an ethical point of view, from a moral point of view, to try to stem some of what I think we may be seeing that we may not really like or be able to do much about.
And let us get to some viewer comments, and I'll get Mr. Otley to respond to some of those viewer comments. Margaret Francis is saying, look, stop trying to call this anything other than what it is. It's racist, pure and simple. All the countries on the list are pretty much non-white, blonde, blue-eyed. It's time people stop beating around the bush. If it's not about race, then explain the welcome for white racist South Africans. Stay woke, people. Mr. Otley, your thoughts on that? Margaret Francis' case is this a racist policy?
Well, yes, it's a racist policy. I mean, but the law allows the U.S. government, in terms of immigration, to use race as a criteria. If they want to ban a particular country from activities, there are a number of reasons that they could use to ban the country, and that's what it is. I mean, that's what the government is allowed to do according to the Constitution. So they're clearly doing it, and yes, we as a population that are not as desirable as the white population is in this country, we have been contributing to the country for centuries. So it's hurtful, and we as a people would really need to educate ourselves and try to do what can be done to help out the situation and to give support for those who hope that after Trump, some of these policies won't be the same as they are right now, or as bad as they may be later on down the line. So we're all being resilient and trying to, go through this storm with the Trump administration's aggressive, mass deportation policy.
Yes, Mr. Otley, this is a space that we will be watching, sir, and we do want to thank you for giving us, educating us on the impacts and implications of this new travel ban policy that may impact some countries in the OECS. Any final comments? And just on mute because we were getting an echo from you. Any final comments, sir, before we get to the next segment? Just unmute your mic. Just unmute your mic.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure to try to impart some insight and information into these complicated immigration topics. I think we need to recruit someone who's really following these things from a media point of view or something like that, to really be able to keep up with what's really going on here and how it's known to be affecting our Caribbean communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The next 4 years, because we're still into the nascent stages of this regime, this authoritarian dictatorial regime. We're in the nascent stages of the second term. So I just can't imagine what this country is going to look like 4 years from now. I just can't imagine what that will be. So, and the world really, look at what's happening in the Middle East there for a man who claimed to be the peacemaking president. Clearly, that's not the case at all, because there seems to be a sadistic tendency with this country and their allies to just bomb and kill brown and black people around the world. But that is as much as I would say on this. Attorney Otley, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report, sir. Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Attorney Roland Otley, and he was here to make sense of a Washington Post reporting from the Washington Post that puts four OECS countries in the crosshairs of an expanded travel ban by the United States of America. The Washington Post released that bombshell report last evening in the newspaper. The report is saying that American diplomats in the affected countries, they have been given orders to advise those governments of the U.S.'s intention to place these countries on an expanded travel ban list. And of course, a lot of those countries on that list are actually African countries. But of course, the regime in Washington has given free rein to white South Africans to be granted asylum into this country. So we should not ask ourselves what that is about at all. So folks, stay tuned for the second segment of the program. We'll be back to have a conversation on the NDC's third year in office. And of course, we know in a matter of a week, the NDC will be commemorating and celebrating the third year of electoral victory at the polls that was back in 2022. So we'll be back for this conversation. Stay tuned for that.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home. Here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We thank you for staying with us. Of course, if you are just joining us, please do us a favor by liking and sharing this week's live stream here on the Bubb Report. Of course, the next segment is politics, talking politics. Quite frankly, there are days when I'm really tired of the politics in Grenada. I would be very honest to say that as a political animal myself, and as someone who was once involved in politics. It's really off-putting sometimes, the nature of the rhetoric on both sides, quite frankly, and sometimes it can be very off-putting. If you're going to be having political conversations, I wish it would be on the substance of the issues affecting the national community, and not the personal attacks, not the vile insults, not the ad hominem volleys that are levied against people's personalities. Instead of addressing the issues, we address personalities. And I really wish we would get beyond that. But here we are. Here we are. And of course, for this segment, folks, we are joined by Mr. William Joseph, who was a former member of the NDC executive, by Mr. Honorable Ron Redhead, who is the Public Relations Officer of the NDC, as well as a Member of Parliament for St. George Northeast, and of course, Dr. Justin Pay, who is a pollster. And the reason why we have assembled this panel is to discuss the NDC's 3 years in office following their 2020 election victory at the polls. Now, for this segment, we will focus on several issues that is affecting the NDC's performance in office. We're going to talk about the party's and the administration's performance in into 6 themes, that is. And the first one will be maintaining active political party structure while in government, the current state of the NDC base membership and diaspora support groups. We're also going to be discussing the NDC manifesto versus what is implemented in government currently by the administration, and the state of NDC leadership and their caretakers, as well as NDC in governance challenges and opportunities. And I'm happy to welcome these 3 gentlemen to the Bubb Report. Mr. William Joseph, no strangers to the program. William, your camera is very dark. I'm not too sure what's happening there, but hopefully we can rectify that as we go along. Of course, the Honorable Ron Redhead. Mr. Redhead, you finally made your way over to the Bubb Report, sir. We haven't seen you since you won your seat in St. George's Northeast. So it's good to have you. And belated congratulations on becoming the Public Relations Officer of the NDC. I must give you credit at least, as opposed to your previous Public Relations Officer, Mr. Orlando Romaine, who never communicated with the Bubb Report. So congratulations for communicating with us, and trust that relationship will continue, sir.
Yes, sir.
And of course, Dr. Justin Pay. Dr. Justin Pay, no stranger to the Bubb Report. Of course, Dr. Pay, you are now the Nate Silver of the Caribbean, sir. You're going around accurately predicting electoral outcomes. You started in Grenada, where you predicted the NDC was going to win the election. Then you went off to Trinidad and Tobago, where you accurately predicted that the UNC was going to win that election. Then I understand that you accurately predicted the outcome of the election in Suriname. So you have carved a reputation on your own, sir. So welcome back to the program, sir.
Welcome to everyone, Honorable Redhead. Ron Redhead, it's a pleasure seeing you today, Mr. William Joseph. Thank you very much. And Professor Bob, thank you very much for having me here. And if I were to say something, as I said, everyone knows that I'm from Grenada. I'm from the northwest side of St. George's. And
any relation to Dr. Keith Mitchell? Are you guys relatives?
Not as yet. You know, I always tell people that I live in NNP country. You know, because most persons for the last 30 years, the majority NNP was always successful in that constituency. However, you know, we realize that you know, things are changing, and we basically, as I said, my interest in politics, not necessarily politics itself, but the science of politics. And you know, we are very fortunate in the sense that over the last maybe 10, 15 years, we have been collecting data on the population of Grenada, the population of the Caribbean registered voters. So we believe that we have a little edge on most organizations, most pollsters. And as I said, we cannot do this by ourselves. We also have to thank our associates from India, the Indian Institute of Technology, who provides a lot of the technology to us. And you know, because it's a science of what is called physiology. Physiology is a science of predicting elections, and you know, the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, they're one of the best in the world in predicting these things. And in terms of Grenada, what we have been doing, in terms of the whole issue of because we have the data, we can produce econometric analysis, you know, and Markov modeling. So you know, we were able to be precise. And as I said, I want to, you know, thank everyone.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so we will be getting into that later. But Honorable Ron Redhead, I want to begin with you, sir, as the newly elected public relations officer, of course, of the National Democratic Congress. Now, one of the challenges that political parties in the Caribbean have is that once they win elections, then the party structure is sort of given second fiddle. And so that has been, as we saw that recently play out in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, we saw that in recent vintage. Of course, in Barbados, that's before the arrival of Mia Motley. We saw that in St. Lucia as well, that the parties sometimes take a backseat because a lot of the party membership is subsumed into the administrative structure of the state. Now, let's talk about the National Democratic Congress's on the cusp of its 3-year anniversary as a party, having won the election. What does the party structure look like now? And have you been able to maintain an active party structure even while in government?
All right, thanks, Dr. Bob, and thanks for having me on the program since a while since I've been on the program. But
well, it's the first time since you won the election. That's a long time coming. But you appeared on the program frequently before.
Yes.
But again, go ahead, sir.
Right. So I would like to, and also let me say welcome to the remainder of the panel. So yes, you started off on the very important note where once you win the election, everybody goes into government. I think what we've been able to do was to still maintain, I would say, a tight grip on the state of the party. For some, they may see a deterioration in terms of the active politics that was being pursued just before the election, where you had town hall meetings every other Wednesday night, you know, people on the ground almost every day of the week, etc. And that momentum cannot be sustained even post the general election. Now, remember that when you win an election, particularly in the Caribbean, you need to go in with a certain measure of support. Most of the positions outside of the established ones are by and large political. And therefore, in some instances, you have to take party officials out of the party structure and get them into government to be able to fulfill government's new mandate, policies, etc., and your manifesto promises. So you have that to contend with. In addition to that, just for many of us, it was a new opportunity, and therefore we needed some time to sit and huddle and learn the ropes effectively. So that certainly played a role in terms of the transition process. But by and large, nonetheless, we are here. The National Democratic Congress, notwithstanding that, has been able to host convention consecutively for the last 3 years in office. We have been able to stage earlier on this year one of the largest political rallies in post-NDC victory period. Even 2008-2013, which was a bigger margin in terms of seats, did not see a turnout like that after it had won the election. And so we believe that where we are now is in a good place. Do we have more work to do? Yes, we do, as a party. And therefore, we have been looking through all the lenses, whether the good ones, the positive ones, the bad ones, the negative ones, to see where are opportunities for the National Democratic Congress to improve. And we believe once we continue to do what is necessary, particularly on the ground, and engaging with voters, we believe that we will be victorious in the next general election, whenever it is called.
William Joseph, of course, you are, I would consider you an elder NDC here. You're vintage NDC. I hope I'm not disrespecting you by calling you vintage.
Well, no, I mean, you are free to describe me in very happy language. That's fine. I mean, I would offer you one correction, if you don't mind. That
Yes, sir.
I was never on the executive of the NDC.
You were only a member of the party.
I was a member for 1 year. I like to add that.
Well, yes, but in that year, you were able to preside over the mass expulsion of several people. So I suspect.
No,
I suspect, William, that my assumption of you being on the executive is predicated on the fact that you led that mass expulsion from SAS.
My friend, that was the year that I helped to save the NDC brand. Put it that way. So my brother, an MP from my area, Brother Ron, he has inherited that, and I'm happy that he has.
Well, so let us talk. Mr. Joseph, let's get into it here, sir. With respect to the party, has the NDC lost ground on the ground, politically speaking, in your observation? Mr. Honorable Redhead just indicated here that they do have some opportunities. He admitted that there are some areas that they need to work on as well. So it's good to hear him saying that. But in your own observations, what have you been seeing?
Yes, and thank you. In the past, you've been kind enough to grant me an appetizer opportunity.
Yes.
Before I get into my main comments, and I'll be happy to do so. And I join you in saying that the subject before us this morning is one of deep national importance, public interest, and therefore I pray that I would speak wisely and choose my words with care so as not to harm others. And I trust that my brothers on the panel will say amen to that. Yes, it's very, very important. Now, let me say, and I will only take a minute to establish my appetizer, that it is very clear that the NDC administration finds itself existing in an era of immense public scrutiny. And that scrutiny is not just coming from opposition forces. It is also coming from NDC people. And their motive is constructive criticism. Their concern is that they do not lose what they have gained. And you heard MP Redhead a minute ago talk about the rally at Boucherjou. No, there's a messianic spirit among the NDC faithful that they do not lose. In other words, that they keep on beating henceforth the NNP. Very messianic. So
or that they break, or William, that they break that one-term curse that.
Yes, that's part of it. Yes, that's part of it. It's very important. But to the substantive question of the profiling of the NDC government stroke party, I think, listen, we've been at this thing over 50 years. The lessons for political parties have been on the table for a long time. That when you form the government, there are measures you must take to ensure that the party functions appropriately. One does not replace the other. Essentially, the party becomes a conveyor belt for the policies, the projects and programs of the administration. And so it's very, very clear what we've tended to have, and I dare say I'm sure we've had it in this last cycle, is that you have political strategizing taking place at the level of the cabinet. But that's a problem. That is problematic. In other words, because you don't have a political setup at the level of the party, the people who are in the government, in the cabinet, are forced thereby to put their minds to essentially party political strategizing, when in fact you ought to have had another machinery to attend to that. So that's an issue. Now, I don't know to what extent, perhaps I should put this differently. I believe that the party has lost several opportunities to build on its political machinery in this period. I give you what I consider a very, very important one. Before Delma Thomas, Honorable, joined the NDC, she and Gloria Thomas engaged in collaboration in their constituency. Unprecedented. And if you were up to the political political speed, and you are the NDC, I would have thought that you would seek to replicate that model in other constituencies, especially where you've had marginal victories. That is to say, that you encourage collaborative efforts between NDC people and non-NDC people in constituencies, so that tends to lift your profile. Now, there is this fallacy. It really is a fallacy that the political strategizing ends when you form the government, so that the thing becomes subordinate to state events, which is the model that has presented itself in the last 3 years. So clearly, it has not worked well. It is never good. And lastly, I will say this, and for me, it is a major point of disappointment, that we have a young administration, meaning an administration consisting of young Grenadians, principal, but whose politics are as old as 19 not. In other words, they have not brought enlightened politics, modern political thinking to bear in their politics, and for the benefit not necessarily of the party, but for the benefit of the Grenadian society. So yes, they have, in my view, the party has not done well on the political platform of the thing, right? The question of the performance of the government is a different issue. But I'm talking.
Yeah, and we will be getting into that conversation.
Yeah.
But Mr. Bennett, and before I bring in Dr. Pei again, I want to give you a chance to articulate what you just heard here from Mr. Joseph.
No, well, it's I would put it as wise counsel. As I have said, we need to take better use or make better use of all opportunities that is provided to the Congress. Where I sit, I see it slightly differently, and allow me to say why. I think, remember, the idea and process of change is not for the immediate. And even the model that was used with Sister Delma and Sister Gloria, it is very unlikely that that model would have been easily accepted in marginal stronghold NNP seats if you did not have prior sort of relationship building with the individuals or head above. Again, it also speaks to an opportunity that we have taken, which is that we are an organization which understands the relationship, particularly on the ground, with people. Because the truth about it is that it is highly unlikely, or was highly unlikely, that you could have someone who campaigned against each other coming after the election on the same platform, talking about transforming their constituency and working together, and now having that person come on board full time. I think it augurs well and is a stark difference from what existed in the past, where what you had were people leaving the Congress at the time, unfortunately so. Now you have more people joining. And the truth is same throughout maybe a vast majority of constituencies, where you had long-standing NNP supporters now joining the National Democratic Congress and wanting to be a part of the quote-unquote transformation, so to speak. Now, for us, the issue is, are we doing enough to talk about the good things that the National Democratic Congress is doing? So for the first time, for example, the NDC is now in receipt of property, is going to pursue the center, which is going to be utilized as a revenue earner for the party. For the first time, NDC amended its constitution and is going to accept groups, because in our humble opinion, in terms of the new dynamics of politics, we believe, for example, a labor union can have more leverage on people's decisions rather than a third party or third force. So these are things that I think that we have as opportunities again to build upon, and also we can take counsel in the criticism, constructively so, as Brother Joseph just mentioned, to be able to improve in areas where we are weak.
Let's bring in, yes, William, is there one more thing?
Just quickly, just to point out that when I talk about the model, I haven't seen you replicate caretaker MP. I said NDC people and NNP people.
Okay.
In other words, influential people on both sides. The thing is, it depends on art and skill. That you get in there and so on, you know what your objective is. Share the arrangement. The public sees it, the constituents see it.
You are a perennial data collector of data like myself. We live in the area of research. That's what we do. And I know you've been on the ground in Grenada recently. The first theme here has to do with the party structure and public perceptions of the party structure. What has your data been telling you with respect to the likability factor of the NDC, not as a government, we'll be getting into that shortly, but as a party?
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Bubb. This is a very important question. As I said, in terms of when we look at the science of, psephology, in terms of how we look at things, in any given party, let's say, for example, a party in small island development state, there are basically about 15 characteristics. And I would not go through all of the 15 characteristics, but things like maybe a clear party ideology and platform. You must have some sort of organizational structure, some type of membership engagement, some of your policy, how you collaborate with stakeholders, how you do strategic planning, and it goes on and on. But in terms of what we have been seeing over the last let's say 3 years, we know that the party has the NDC has a ideology. It is seen as a more center left. Okay, we know that. We also know that in terms of the leadership, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell has strong leadership. His leadership, is he has a lot of popularity. Okay, we also see in terms of when you look at the structure of the NDC, we know, for example, the NDC has some inherent deficiency, and one of the deficiencies is that the NDC as a party has limited membership compared to the NNP. We know that the NDC has we know that the elections, that when the NDC won the election, in my opinion, they should have never stopped campaigning. And because they literally stopped campaigning, went to sleep, we felt that they lost a lot of opportunities that they could have, engaged. So, for example, in terms of their whole theory, between, let's say, 6 to 9 months after someone win there's something called voter conversion, the highest rate of voter conversion. In that case, the NDC did not do anything. They did not campaign. So we know that in addition to what Mr. Williams and Honorable Ron Reddit said, there have been some challenges within the NDC as a party. So if we evaluate the government, we have to see must evaluate the NDC different from the government, and in terms of what they have done, as we said that the NDC lacks in how the government in terms of an organized structure. They have more or less very weak infrastructure in terms of what the members, for example, the older members feel more or less disenfranchised compared to the new members. We see that in the NDC there are like two fractions, an old fraction and there is a new fraction, and we believe that the NDC has to take this opportunity to learn from the past 3 years to move forward if they need to be elected. We see from that the NDC also they have a larger presence, more influence outside of the country than inside, and that has to be measured carefully. The structures must be in place. The NDC urgently needs a building, a place where non-NDC members can really look and engage each other. And I think that is some of the initial challenges.
Yes. I want you to stick a pin there, and I'll get Mr. Redder to respond, and maybe Mr. Joseph to pick up on what you said. In relation to, you said the NDC, the base is more popular outside of Grenada than they are in Grenada. Could you expand on that? And what is the basis of that observation?
Right. So, for example, the NDC, let's say we compare the NDC and the NNP. So the NDC has a very strong diaspora engagement. They liaise a lot with outside of the country. However, in terms of the grassroots, being on the grassroots, organization on the grassroots, that needs some more work to do. And we hope that within the next 2 years, the actual structure of the party, we need to see the NDC on the ground. We need, so because persons after the elections, persons wanted to engage with the NDC, wanted to associate with them, but that was lacking, and I think that people felt disoriented, and I think that moving forward, the more structure should take place, and I'm hopeful that Honorable Redhead, as the new PRO of the party, should try to establish some type of structure. People still like to feel and touch, because and this is basically where advice I would give the NDC.
Honorable Redhead, is that can you articulate what parts of that advice you will take and what parts you reject?
Well, I certainly accept it wholeheartedly. I think importantly is the observation about the structure and infrastructure. One has to remember that the 2021 general election, the election of the leadership of the Congress occurred in 2021. In at least 8 months, we had to go right into a general election. We were successful by 1 seat, I think, by 2, 8 plus 1, and now move into governance 3 years in. We still had to paint the bus essentially while it was moving, because you have to deal with the political party, and as you heard from the two well-seasoned gentlemen, is that you can't stop the politics And therefore, the structure itself had some challenges, and it is a process to rebuild. But where I sit, I could say comfortably that work is being done in this regard. The party is certainly a very, very durable party, I must confess. Any other political party in Grenada's history going through all these series of instability, losses as it has endured, may not have survived. And so we take some sort of comfort, not complacency, but comfort in that we still have the opportunity to build on this potentially goodwill. Now, as it relates to grassroots and the local versus foreign support, or diaspora support, that may seem true. I must confess that the diaspora organizations are well-organized machineries. Each chapter by now has completed all of their branch elections. And so they now have their executives in place in accordance with the new constitution, which is 2 years. I think the only outstanding one now is the Miami chapter. And therefore, we believe in the strength and capacity in our Grenadian brothers and sisters outside. But we also are doing a number of things internally to help bridge that gap. So you heard me mention earlier on that we have amended our party's constitution to be able to accept groups. We understand fully that locally, there might be some very influential groups in Grenada that, if given the opportunity, not to be voting members, but as a group to be a member of the political party and engage, improve the stakeholder engagement, not just have it as a by the way something, but institutionalize it. We believe that this is going to help build the strength and support locally that we need to build. But we are also cognizant that why we are doing this is not just to dominate this one-party state kind of philosophy, because we believe in democracy. Now, at the same time, we cannot go out on a limb to say that NDC wants 15 seats and NDC must get 15 seats. And I'll tell you why we believe so. Now, and the gentleman may disagree with me, but ideally, any political party would love to get all of the political seats that is up for grabs. The challenge is that if you are willing to do all that is necessary to do that, you would oversee and preside over the destruction of the state through its institutions. And so making accommodation with the political organization for there to be a systematic way outside of people's own constitutional right to, or rather within people's constitutional right of freedom of assembly, for them to engage with your political party and still could go back to their own stakeholders, is something that we see is of more value rather than going and just try to obtain all of the 15 seats. But that's just, a one-sided opinion, and I'm certainly
because I would press you on this. Your theory of the case is that the NNP, which won 3 iterations of 15 seats, oversaw the destruction of institutions. That is a very
so put it this way. Put it this way. The NNP has won 15 seats on 3 occasions.
Yes.
Is Grenada better off?
Well, they may say yes. Of course, they're going to say yes. They
may, but of course, they will defend their legacy.
As would the NDC defend their legacy, and of course, the opposition would say that your legacy is not as good as theirs. So, both sides do it. Both of you do it.
Both sides do. But I'm saying, in grand scheme of things, we're talking about a new style of politics that needs to be had. And mind you, I am saying this is not a final decision, but we're having a conversation essentially as to why we are doing certain things now, 3 years in, as a political party. And Brother William mentioned about the strategy. Now, mind you, your strategy overall must remain the same. Your working strategy now, in my view, which is you need to win the election, right, as a political party. Your working strategy, how you win the election, which seats you target, all these other variables, those are always subjected to change. And you have to be able to accommodate for that. Because you spoke about a model, I want to go back to it because I think it's an important point. One certainly must be willing to engage all parties across all lines, whether NNP, NDC, etc. And so as a political organization, you need to create the avenue for that to occur. So I'm saying, for us to say that NDC must win all 15 seats, and mind you, this might just sound a bit modest, because for us, the question of the development of the country is around how do we build and strengthen the institutions, not so much just the political party. We have an obligation, we have a role to play in terms of getting us to develop when we form the government, but there are other institutions that must be working in the state to make that happen.
Yeah. Now, yes, William, quickly, because I do want to press Mr. Reddit on that question of diaspora support.
Sure, yes. Okay. Yeah, I would not be long. I just wanted to footnote the point that Dr. Peer made a while ago. The heart of this thing is something that is simply called relationship. Right. What is your relationship with your constituents? Yeah. So when an MP is having an event, but he puts on his poster, Minister so-and-so, well, who are you talking to? He doesn't say member of parliament inviting his constituents. He's saying minister for so-and-so. So you see the sexiness of this minister label coming up and so on, and you're downplaying the party thing because your MP status has to do with the party. You see the disconnect right away. You can have I saw a poster one time, and I spoke to my friend concerned, where a secretary was extending an invitation to members in a constituency branch. It wasn't coming from the MP himself, first person. I am inviting you, my constituents, to meet with me. It was coming from a secretary. So you see, I'm talking about elementary political thinking. If you had at the level of the party a mechanism that held fellas' hands while they were focused on government work and so on, and found ways to craft, to weave the political stuff onto that thing, you're not going to have that. You would not have had that problem. I'll give you one last point: the role of the General Secretary. In the lead up to the last convention, there was a lot of criticism about Larry Barry, the then General Secretary. I had no way of determining whether those criticisms were sound or not. But then I heard his successor recently praise Larry Barry for having organized the party well. In my estimation, the problem was not about party organization. It was about the party's inability to engage in political strategizing. So in other words, the traditional thing where you have a general secretary and the role of the general secretary, that's one thing. Your general secretary is not required to be a political strategist. Whereas in this period, the party needs that kind of mechanism. Right. And you didn't have it, and you said Larry must go because he wasn't able to do that. You are answering the wrong question.
Right. I just want to point out one item from Brother Williams. We have to understand that politics today is different from politics 5 years ago. Why? Because in the first time in our life, we have the abundance of data, the abundance of issue of artificial intelligence. We have all these type of, we could make proper analysis. And what we saw, for example, with let's say Larry Barry, even though he was skilled at what he did, but there was no organized structure there for him to deliver what is a message. And we're hoping that from now that as I said, we remember that the NDC should have a structure, should have an organized team, and people should know who these teams are. People, as we mentioned, that even as I said, people want to know who are the advisors of the Prime Minister. So so we need to know these things. And as of today, we do not know these things. Okay, when decisions are made in the government, nobody knows where the decisions from. There isn't an avenue to vent, and I think that is something that the NDC has to learn. We also have to. The NDC has to understand that because of there's a lack of data. The NDC does not conduct proper surveys. In fact, none of the other organizations, okay? But you need to know who your people are. How many NDC members are single parents? How many NDC members have a mortgage or whatever? We need to collect data, and this is absent from most of these organizations, including the NDC. And we're asking them to put the structures in place so in the next 3 years they can move forward to become successful.
Let us quickly, gentlemen, can you hear me clearly? Someone is saying that there is distortion on my end. I'm not too sure that there is. We are monitoring it from my end. I'm not getting any distortion. But quickly, Mr. Redhead, you reference the importance of the diaspora groups here. Some of those diaspora groups, Mr. Redhead, quite frankly, had some challenges. We saw a resignation in the Miami branch of one member, I believe was the public relations officer. This is not hearsay or rumors. I always come with facts. Right. I don't know who I'm directing that to, but and then there was also concerns over Mr. Roy McEwen. In fact, members of the UK, former members, I'm not sure if they're still members. That's one Francis Nichols, John Nichols, Rosalind Simon. Are they members of the UK branch still? I don't know. But they wrote to express concerns about his conduct of the NDC Diaspora Support Group. In fact, you also had a resignation from that support group in the NDC UK chapter as well. I believe that lady served as a public relations officer. I don't think she would want me to go around calling her name because she said some information to me in confidence. So what's happening in those diaspora groups? Are there growing pains? And in the past, when those issues came up, how did the party deal with it?
Yeah, no, so look, I wouldn't run from anything. I think you're accurate in terms of resignations, but it's a natural process within parties that they go through those kinds of things. I think the question is, how well do you deal with it? And then in what condition is the specific chapter or party group in post the resignations? I dare say that I would not deal with it as how my predecessors, Brother William, this is intended to you, dealt with it in the past, where we expel people. But I think I'm just teasing.
No, please, my brother, don't confuse things. The expulsion issue, be very clear.
Yes.
The expulsion issue arose in the context of division.
Right.
Division within the NDC government and party.
Right.
Such that it became non-viable. And that's why you got that 15-0 that time.
Right. So the point is,
yes, go ahead.
And leading off of that is that you don't have a similar situation that what existed then. The question is, as I mentioned, how well do you rebound post these instances, which is a normal occurrence, but which you will have to plan for. But what do you do after that? Are people still joining the chapters? The answer is yes. Are people replacing the positions? The answer is yes. And so we believe that notwithstanding coming from that period, we still have continued normal work to do politically to energize, keep it intact, and to constantly replenish whenever you have.
Yes, but have you dealt with the fundamental underlying issues that led to those resignations in the first place?
Right. Well,
at the organizational level.
Right. So the party has its own structures which deals with that. The general secretary is directly responsible for treating with matters of whether it is disciplinary actions or so on that you might be alluding to, or otherwise, in order to resolve conflicts within the party structure. The Constitution makes provision for the process, and the general secretary is directly responsible for that.
Now let us get on to expectations in manifesto versus reality in government implementation. Now, of course, the NDC touts is a pension payment as perhaps the marquee and signature accomplishment over the last 3 years. But outside of that, and of course, you've also, the party, the government, the NDC in government had also contend with, of course, the unfortunate Hurricane Beryl incident that occurred in Carriacou and PT Martinique. And housing is another marquee manifesto item that your government is saying that you are implementing now. with respect to implementing things or projects on time and things like that. That is another mark of your administration's work. So let us talk about where the administration is in respect of what it promised versus in the campaign versus what it governs as. What grade would you give yourself, Mr. Redden? And I'll get to Mr. Joseph after that.
Right. Well, I think we're about 75% in terms of the 3 years, in terms of what we wanted to achieve. We have laid the foundation for a great many of them. Pension repayments being one, we promised the by monthly payments. We promised the blue economy. We've been able to now implement this ministry and is working out the particulars as it relates to how it is going to function. The other thing is that this administration has created what we consider to be 4 delivery units. Those delivery units are going to be outside of the normal scope of things, and it's the first time in Grenada's history that we are doing such, to be able to drive home the implementation of policies that we hold so dear to our hearts. So I will call the 4. One, Project Polaris, particularly focused on health. You have Project 500, particularly focused on affordable housing and being able to bridge the gap for where Grenadians are falling short to afford house, because the cost of land is one thing, but people who have access to properties, how do we treat with that? And is it a case that we are saying that the government must continue to build homes for people and ultimately provide the labor, etc.? That is not sustainable. So how do we bridge that gap? Then the second one is centers of excellence, directly related to education, but more so focusing on how do we professionalize centers of excellence to drive home the point of skills training, so that we can bridge the gaps, so that we can start turning out more carpenters and more skilled laborers that we do not need to import, and people could actually work and earn an income within. And then the fourth and final one is on the question of energy. And all 4 of these units are going to have project sponsors. The expectation is that you're going to allow, through the use of the country and its resources, the implementation of this project, which is going to be much faster outside the normal scope and red tape and structure that the government entails, and is going to help facilitate a bit more speed to be able to implement this sort of policy. So we are confident that with that model, we are going to be able to achieve great many things that we promised in the manifesto as we go into the full term. The second thing to that is that we believe that we have made significant strides in a number of areas, right? Education, even healthcare, notwithstanding that from an infrastructure standpoint, we still have a lot more work to do to get the facilities up to the standard that it needs to be gotten. But at this point, by and large, the assessments on the state of the health sector in Grenada is completed. We know now a lot more things that we did not know probably prior to 2022. And the critical thing is we know now what are the mechanisms that we are going to use to fix it. The other area has to do with agriculture. Now, we are confident that once we continue on track as we are going to be able to fix out some of the long-standing issues in the agricultural sector, that we will continue engaging stakeholders, continue creating the solutions and implementing those solutions. We are confident that we can build that out. We didn't have to do much with tourism. And so by and large, we continue the successful model of the tourism sector and ensuring that it is not only seen as a superficial sector in the economy, which is said to be the leading of Grenada's growth rate, but that it works well with other sectors, the linkage, and it can now transition into a more direct interaction. As Brother Williams mentioned earlier on, that interaction, the engagement, that one is critical for tourism. So we are now going to roll out the aspects a lot more of community tourism. We are confident also that as it relates to education, for example, we have been able to reduce the costs and access for a lot of our students locally. Now, we need to build out a comprehensive model, which will talk, for example, about student loans and how people can be able to access that, even outside the youthful age, because education is about lifelong learning. And no matter what your age, you must never stop learning. That is key, and we want to promote more of that. We are confident from a grassroots community-based level that training, by and large, as we go throughout the conversations, you can ask, and I would be happy to respond as to our performance in various headlines that we have promised under the mandate.
Yes, Mr. Redhead. You mentioned labor, and that's one of the areas that labor and civil society. Of course, there are still unanswered questions about Project Polaris in respect of the contractual arrangement that you're getting in there with Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, that's the name of the hospital. It almost escaped me there. But you've also come in for heavy criticism from the union, notwithstanding the trade union movement in Grenada. They supported you in droves in the last election. But at the same time, the trade union movement has felt that you were a bit high-handed in some of your actions as a government. So, for example, demanding to see the results of the PWU, the just concluded PWU elections, that has been an issue. The dismissed workers from Carriacou, and I believe there are other workers from St. Patrick or St. Andrew as well, who were duly compensated for being unfairly dismissed. And that litigation happened there. But also on the civil society side, there are those in civil society who are saying that the government is just refusing to engage with civil society. So there are limitations there. Mr. Redhead, what say you in response to those allegations?
Yeah, well, those are just allegations. But
no. In the case of civil society, it's not just allegations. So you have not engaged in civil society. That's not an allegation.
Right.
You've also the cabinet secretary wrote to the Public Workers Union demanding to see minutes of their AGM in the lead up to election. That is not an allegation.
Right, and so all of that is true, but I'm saying in terms of in good faith, not dealing with the unions, that certainly is not true. As it relates to the specific matters, we have absolutely no control, or at least I could speak for the party in this instance, notwithstanding I am a member of parliament, I'm also the PRO. I have absolutely no control, nor does the party have any control over negotiations, breakdown in negotiations, the firing and hiring of workers in the government system. That is for the government as an employer and the unions as employees to negotiate. Now, I would say this. If I am to judge the labor situation in the country, I would not look at it just from the narrow lens of 5 or 6 instances or occurrences where in those cases workers felt that their rights may have been deprived, etc. That is fair, and that's for them to continue articulating. I would look at it from the broad spectrum. One, I would look at the situation with unemployment in the country. In fact, today, it is estimated that from the labor survey that was conducted in 2023, the unemployment rate could be approaching single digits, meaning about 9%, right? It might be closer to 10. So it's coming from a situation where in 2023, the last survey that was done suggested that is about 11.1%. Now, if this holds, notwithstanding that we've had, external shocks from Hurricane Beryl, the uncertainties with the Trump administration, etc., if that holds, you could still see that by and large, labor-wise, things have been improving. In addition to that, this is probably one of the most successful era for labor unions in Grenada, historically, based on what they've had to endure for many years. And we could just highlight again the trumpet pension. So it is not to say that we are ignoring the instances of how people may feel deprived, but we believe in a balanced assessment on the labor situation in the country. And by and large, we think that it is going in the right direction. Now, the instances of things which in some instances we've inherited predominantly a long time, it may take a lot longer to resolve. And then again, this is a give and take. The engagement cannot be a one-sided approach where the government just simply says, let me hear you, and then you come and you complain. but we have to have a relationship.
Well, citizens are entitled to complain, sir.
No. Citizens are. I am saying yes, but I'm saying yes. But the government is also responsible for whether or not every instance of something that is raised, that it goes and turns its attention to it or focus on the bigger picture, a more macro level. But I'm not making an excuse. I'm saying to you, Kellon, that these things do occur and throughout the world over. So it is not specific to Grenada alone. What I would say is that by and large, as I've maintained, the advancement of the labor sector or labor situation in Grenada from 2022 to now, we see it going in the positive trend, notwithstanding these instances.
Mr. William Joseph, now before in the first I would say year and a half, maybe 2 years of the NDC administration, you referenced the administration as a beautiful government. Beautiful government. Remember those patriotic Vine voice notes, Mr. Joseph?
No. I was saying that I was hoping that the government would establish itself as a beautiful government.
Well, Mr.
Totally different. The reality clearly is not so.
Well, Mr. Joseph, what has changed? What has changed, sir, from your juxtaposition of the beautiful government to a government that you perceive as not being so beautiful?
No. Remember, I just said that I never said that they were a beautiful government.
Well,
I said that I was hopeful that they would emerge
as a beautiful
into
government.
that. Yes, that has not happened.
Have they emerged as a beautiful government?
No,
sir?
they have not yet. And I can't say there's a work in progress. I don't even think so.
And can you articulate why that is?
But I wanted to make a couple comments on the manifesto. The question you had put to MP Ron.
Yes.
About manifesto and the connection and so on there. To make a couple of points. One is that, generally speaking, we are 3 years. My thinking is that we're at the juncture of judgment. We are at the juncture of judgment. So you're talking about evaluation and accountability. And people are looking at these things, okay, from various points of view, of course. Something tells me that the government has peaked already. So that the remaining 12 months or so, listen to me, the final year ain't counting now. What counts is the remaining 12, and it's not even as much as 12 months, right? That's a crucial period.
Yes.
So, Brother Ron, you listed 4 vehicles, if you will, this morning and so on. And I said to myself as I listened to you, well, there's been no PR about these things. No, but there's no public education about these things to help people to understand what they are, what the objectives are, how they are going to help in generating and advancing public welfare and so on. You know, you are not talking about that. So it takes us back to the absence in your politics of a PR capability that takes the thing to the public. So you have things boxed up and so on in your pocket, and every now and then somebody put a snippet out. Having said that, let me move on quickly. So I just said I believe the government has already peaked. There are serious implications for that, if that is true. I have been very disappointed regarding the manifesto expectation and promise on transformation. Listen, Grenada, and primarily your support base, consists of a set of Grenadians who have enjoyed better standards of education in the last 50 years. So all of us under 70 and going up there to those who are 20 years old, we're in the education flow. We're thinking, we're demanding information. You know, we are not as polished as Dr. Pierre and so on with the, the analysis and so on and so on, but we're interested in these things, right? And I would have thought that there would have been a serious approach to move from rhetoric, the rhetoric of transformation, and present us with a picture that could move us from rhetoric to reality. So that would have had to begin with a public paper on transformation. It would have addressed, in my view, the ideology of the thing, the philosophy of the thing, the scope of it. And when I say scope now, I'm talking about the public education that ties in self, society, sectors, and state. And so we could see the goals that you're seeking to achieve. But we don't have any such thing. And to me, it is an insult to many of your supporters who crave for that kind of critical information because they want to understand what the government is about to do. Listen to me. At the top of this, I said that some of the scrutiny is coming from your own people. It is very true. It is constructive. And I do hope that it is received as that. But they are engaging in that because they don't want to see you lose it. They don't want to see you lose the government again. That's why you see they're engaging in that. You have to understand what's going on there. I describe it as being messianic. It's a spirit that they don't want to lose to the NNP again. That is the message that they're sending to the party. It is now for the party to do its work, right? And to get the thing going. Now, 2 last points. One, public service. Listen to me. It was always a misconceived idea. And it keeps hitting the regime on its head. And it is one of those areas where perhaps there's an opportunity for the regime at the level of the hierarchy to say, no, we didn't understand this one well. We accept that we didn't understand this one well. It's not an apology. It's an acceptance that, listen, just as you've conceded, there are things you didn't know before you came in and things that you got to know since coming in and so on. That one public service thing, because it translated disappointment at the level of people who may have come to you with the vote in 22 and who now find that there is no fulfillment, or those who find that you offering them a pension which amongst the half a loaf when they are expected a full loaf. You see, so there are some issues there. And the last point is this question of corruption. In the NDC manifesto, there is language there that says that an NDC administration is going to treat this thing, unethical conduct, with zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. So when allegations and noises about corruption pop up, one would expect serious and credible responses. I'm not talking about condemning who is accused. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about responses that give the public some degree of comfort that the allegations, in fact, and things of that kind, the noises, are not justified. Or if, in fact, some cases they're justified, here is what the regime is doing about it. So you have some sensitive matters facing you. Let me say the last thing. Governments are not replaced in Grenada on the basis of good works. You won the election in 22, you had not poured a single bag of cement. And you won it against a man who had poured thousands of bags of cement. What explains that?
And imported stones. Don't forget the stones. Tell Stone. Tell Stone.
Yes.
I mean, Brother Ron, I mean,
No.
This thing, you know what I mean? Forgive me for being so, energetic. But,
well, I accept it. So Kellon, let me say this, because part
of
my role as the public relations officer so far was to go around the country and listen, right? In some instances, I need to hear from people directly. Look at people, let them say, well, we ain't feel happy about this, we happy about this, but we ain't happy about that, etc. Because it is part of the process to heal, to fix, to repair once there is an issue. Now, I understand the criticism. I think it's justified because the responsibility now is upon us as the party, or party in power, to be able to articulate to the people based on our manifesto, these are the things that we have done, this is what we are doing, this is what transformation for us means, this is our lexicon of it, that is how we expect to roll it out over the next 10 years or so. And to speak to people on what it is importantly they want to hear. Now, the challenge, and I suspect all political parties have this challenge. When you are dealing with a situation where you had young people winning an election, the revolution dealt with it in a different way, which was to consolidate around a dictatorial system of power, meaning that you forget the constitution, you centralize power, and you take control of everything so that nothing escapes. But the issue of us being able to explain in 3 years what it is that we met, what it is that we're doing, is still going to be a work in progress, because even to build the general hospital in Grenada, we had to design a new model completely out of the structure of central government, because it was just too cumbersome, filled with a number of red tapes, which is stifling development in the country. Again, this is a system and a model that was built up for many years. So the thing is, we can't just come out and start to cross and say, well, this position is not functioning well, it's an established position, that position. We have to take time to be able to articulate to people what it is. So essentially, the time is needed to be able to articulate that.
Yes.
And Dr. Pear, yes, this is a timely intervention, and Mr. Honorable Redhead mentions time here.
Well,
we want to get straight into, because we're running out of time. We really want to get straight into your recent social media analysis. So let's get into it. Mr. That's Dr. Pear. Go ahead.
Well,
sir.
yes, I just want to just on one point, okay, on just one point, go back on the manifesto.
Yeah.
Honorable Redhead, I believe that you were going around the country. I believe, in my opinion, it is kind of too late for that. You had like 2 years to deal with that, and it has not been done. And what has happened is that, as I said, I do not know if the NDC conducts surveys, because if anyone had conducted a survey or research, all of that information would be known. I just want to go on 1 second with regard to the manifesto. What we have done, we have looked at 25 major items in the manifesto. I mean, I believe, in my opinion, that the NDC was ambitious in terms of putting all these things in the manifesto. Some have been done. The bi-monthly salary was done. Payment of the pension was done. The minimum wage was done. The build back 500 homes. There's a question marks, and in my opinion, just from looking at it, they have not accomplished the majority of items that they had listed in the manifesto. So that's basically it. What I want to just say is that the NDC,
but Mr. Pear, to be fair to the NDC, they have only been there for 3 years. They've only been there for 3 years. Do you expect them to accomplish every single item of the manifesto?
Okay.
No, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I believe that, in my opinion, in terms of when we wrote the paper, we were expecting that the NDC should get a 10-year mandate, because to improve all of these things, to accomplish all of these things in the manifesto, it was so ambitious. The NDC needed a 10-year mandate. That is 2 consecutive terms.
So to be able to do that. Good.
But
good.
What is
Thanks
most
for that
important?
admission. Thanks for that admission.
Yes. So what is most important? When we conducted this survey in 2022, there were 20 items that people said that they needed. Okay. What we also have to look at, we found that there are 5 items. 76% of all voters voted for 5 items. And the first item was the pension payment. 29.4% voted for pension payment. Government contract to temporary workers reform, 18.64%. The transformation agenda, 14.2%. and employment creation. Okay, so it is very important that the NDC, okay, maintain and as I said, realize that what if they do not accomplish these things, if they, especially the transformation, they're most likely to lose support. And this is what we are very cautious about, that as I said, the NDC should conduct town hall meetings, conduct surveys, conduct data on the population to see how they are doing. And we found that this is not being done. Okay, we do not know how the decisions are made. Okay, and as I said, we like to know who are the advisors. However, we cannot blame the Prime Minister, because he is the Prime Minister. He's new to politics, so therefore we have to get additional. He has to be covered with advisors that will advise him. With regard now to our analysis in terms of the social media, so what we have done is that we have looked at just a brief. In Grenada, a lot of things are now done on the internet,
yes,
on social media, online. So over the last 3 years, 2.5 years, the social media influence has been very, very important. At any one point in time, there are over 100,000 people online. So in order for you to reach people, you must be able to have an online presence. What we're seeing, for example, that obviously the Prime Minister, through his resources and the social network, has been dominating the social media. He has been having we have a bot on him, so we see all what is done, and it is very professional, very organized, very well done. Okay, what we have seen over the last so his ratings have generally been over 70%.
Right now, go ahed. Yes, I'm actually
over the last
couple
months since April, we see that has dropped around 4% to 67%. However, we've seen that the NNP, especially with Minister Emmeline Pierre, there is a resurgence of activities on social media, and this shows that there is something that is going on either with the NNP or within the social media landscape. So we are encouraging persons, especially within the NDC, that more persons should be on the internet, more persons should be engaged. And what we are seeing...
Well, the Minister of Transformation is very engaged. There isn't one day when he doesn't post on social media outside of Prime Minister Mitchell. So how is he not factored into your data, Dr. Pei?
The Minister of Transport, yes. Well, yes.
Andy Williams, is he not factored?
Yes, he is also good. So the Prime Minister is very is very influential. Andy Williams is also very influential. Honorable Ron Redhead is very influential. So these are the three persons who are the most presence online.
And the others don't have that big presence.
Yes,
the other
and this
MPs.
is a disadvantage to the NDC because there is a lack of centralized knowledge, centralized command. It seems as though ministers are left to engage for themselves, and this should not be so. They should have a coordinated effort for social media presence within the NDC organization. Because remember that this is not the presidency, okay? There are 15 constituencies. If the NDC wins St. David's, South St. George, Northwest, these are the strongest NDC seats.
Northwest, which Northwest? You mean
Northeast? Sorry, St. George's Northeast.
Okay, I was about to say.
Mr. Honorable Redhead facility. So these are the more or less the strongest NDC, the NDC stronghold. All the others now are too close to call, especially in St. Patrick's. A lot of activities will take place in St. Patrick's. There is a battleground on the internet, on social media. Those who collect data and watch the data from Meta and all these. There is, a lot of information. So what we do, we measure what is called like ratio, share ratio, all of the algorithms. It is measured and monitored and data mined. And we're asking the NDC and all the other organizations to place specific emphasis on that. And then the other challenge we see is that in the constituency of St. David's, there is a new political person that whole methodology has been a little different to that of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has his methodology has been more or less Gary.
And you're referencing Miss Nolene Thompson, who is
Nolene Thomas, yes,
new caretaker, caretaker for that area. Yes.
If you look at sometimes what the data is showing, that her methodology is a little different to that of the Prime Minister. However, but her presence is steadily growing. And this is something that the NDC should look at.
Her influence. Let us talk about that methodology. Can you unpack what you reference in respect of her methodology?
Right. Well, I mean, I really want to,
Well, why, Dr. Pear? Why would you not want to do that? As I've asked you in the past, were you hired by the NNP to observe political activities in St. David's?
But
I know you posters tend to be coy, but go ahead, sir.
Because we are statisticians, we are blind, and we've realized that every political party in power sees us as enemy, as aligning with the opposition. But I'm not. I mean, as I said, anyone can call me. It's not. We're not doing this for money. Anyone can call me, and I can provide information. Okay. So let's say, for example, we have done many of these things. What we have over the NDC or the NNP is that we have, a lot of data on the voting population. So let's look at the methodology. What Miss Nolene, her methodology is more qualitative. More qualitative. The Prime Minister methodology, as I said, is like Gary, meet the people tour. You speak to the person for a minute. You have the camera, etc. And that and there's a little difference in that. I mean, I would not go into everything because I don't want to publicize.
Well, I do not want to implicate you, sir.
The Prime Minister has to be careful. Okay, has to be careful. The Prime Minister, so there, and St. David's is becoming a battleground, which I find is very interesting. Okay, that this young lady, all from Norway, just steadily gaining traction in a seat, 1 year ago was considered safe for the Prime Minister, and this is what what we have seen. So we have seen for between, let's say, from 2020 to 2024, there are in terms of voters, the number of new registration has been obviously in Andy Williams' constituency, in the Prime Minister's constituency, in Mr. Redhead constituency, and in the St. George constituency. So these are the highest number of registration to date. And what we ask in persons, to go into your constituency, we ask them, talk to people. At this stage, every political leader, every minister should spend time in his constituency, and we're not seeing that. And we are asking the NNP, NDC, the next couple of years to emphasize that, or else if they do not do it, there would be trouble. The NDC, I wouldn't want to say it, there would be trouble.
But there is time for them. There is time for them to take that advice into consideration.
Well,
I just want to make this point. I just want to make this point to some of the viewers in the comment section. Those who are calling Dr. Pierre biased, they're calling Dr. Pierre's maths is not mathsing, Dr. Pierre this, Dr. Pierre that. Dr. Pierre accurately predicted the NDC's victory 3 years ago. So now, because Dr. Pear's data shows something different, those of you who were cheerleading Dr. Pear 3 years ago are now saying all sorts of things about Dr. Pear. I think we need to be consistent across the board. I just need to put that out there.
Right.
But
Yes.
Dr. Pear, thank you for that intervention. Mr. Joseph, we'll get to you, and then we have to get to Mr. Joseph, and then we will close the program, get to the final segment. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, well, I thank Dr. Pear for his analysis, of course. Let me see, there is a simple rule of thumb in this thing. If you don't fix it, you don't correct it, it's going to lead to your demise. So there are opportunities, you've had them for a long time, to correct some of the shortcomings. And you have not done a good job at that. The second point I would make is this: the Prime Minister is a coin. View him as a coin. He's both an asset on the one side, on the other side is vulnerable. So the Prime Minister as political leader has also to be managed by your strategy people. You see, the Prime Minister political leader is not required to be a political strategist. And we ought not to go around assuming that because he's leader and so on, he's on his merry own and he can take care of himself. We shouldn't do that.
Exactly.
We should understand there's a need for the appropriate political systems to be built around the NDC politics. That is missing. You're not going to get it because you elected my MP as General Secretary. You're not going to get it because he's fixed to that traditional role. You need some new machinery to get this thing done, and you probably would have to pay for it. Last point.
Right.
Dr. Pear touched on it. This issue of ability to govern. You remember in the campaign, the major hit, the NNP's primary strike on the NDC, it wasn't Dr. Pear, I think perhaps it was you, Brother Ron, was that it lacked the ability to govern. That was the hit. And some of us who battled in the vineyard, as Comrade Ralph would say, of the NDC in the media, we responded this way. We said, you know what? Yes, they're young. A, young people are running Grenada anyway, in industry, in commerce, and this and in that. B, we expect that they would have available to them experienced people to help them along. Go and play the tapes back then. Where are those experienced people today? You see, and that's why sometimes I get a little upset, because it amounted to a sort of appropriation of the victory. You see, and I shouldn't go there this morning, but it is really, it's a vexing thing that if you don't build the right systems, you are not going to get the results simply because you think that you're pretty enough and you're flashy enough to pull it off. It doesn't work that way.
Right, and that's a very good point, because it is what we are trying to. I mean, as what we do is that it is what the methodology we use to assess this Grenada situation is what is called sophrology. As I said, it's the science of predicting election. It's first established in the 50s in Cambridge University, but now it is more popular because of the use of data. What we have done, we have analyzed many of the analysis. We use some of the Markov modeling to review the situation in the country. But as I said, it's not, the NDC is not finished, but there is a change in tide. We don't know what is going on, but there's a change in tide. The people are somehow getting more or less, very concerned, in the sense that the whole issue of the Prime Minister traveling, excess traveling. I mean, someone should have known.
Well, I don't think he has traveled this month. I wonder if
well, that's good. Okay.
I don't know.
Someone would have known that. Someone must have
I'll get to you, sir.
said to the Prime Minister, Honorable Deacon Michel, you are traveling too much. The people are saying you're traveling too much. And this is what we are that's what data is about. We need to take constant measure. Like in our country, in Canada, the Prime Minister meets with the Director of Statistics every single month. Okay, so we do not expect the Prime Minister to know everything. He is, very articulate. He's a handsome, sexy. He's favorable. He has high likability, but we need advisors around him to say, hey, to guide him, and that's what we're looking for.
All right. Well, Mr. Redhead, Honorable Redhead, there is a lot to unpack here, sir.
Yes.
So, because I really want to. Yes, sir. Please go ahead and.
So yes, the National Democratic Congress is doing polls, gentlemen. We have been doing as far back as we have been doing polls since coming into office. We are assessing the ground, particularly in all of the constituencies, not only strongholds or those that are not strongholds. I think the issue is, and I want to borrow something from Prime Minister Roosevelt Scary. He would say that whenever he looked and listened to the radio and look at social media, once an election has to be called, you might think it's a foregone conclusion. You lose already. But in doing the things that are necessary to win is what I think it comes down to. Brother William mentioned it. Dr. Pear, you are mentioning it as well, in the sense that it is not to say that the party has lost all hope and we back to square one with one term. However, politics is like a game of cricket, meaning that if you do not have all of the things lined up sufficiently, you then run yourself, no matter how good your team may have looked on paper, maybe for the last World Cup or wherever, you then run yourself the risk of losing what you came so close to win. Essentially, we understand the fear of the one term, and that could be it playing up in its own way through members, where people believe that, NDC is known for one term. When we get into office, we lose, and so on afterwards. But I think at this point, there is still a measure of hope in Grenada that the party must find a refuge and bring out. I am not fearful of the criticisms on behalf of the party, because I think it is going to help us. What we need to do...
I wish you would advise that. Yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah,
yes.
Just permit me. What we need to do is to ensure that those things that will make the difference for us to win, that we do them. We surely cannot do everything. And like was mentioned, the manifesto is something that is, by and large for the future. It never said that once we are in this term, every single thing will be done. And when I say we are 75%, at least I mentioned some implemented, some looked into, some we laid the foundation for them to take off, certainly in the second term. So it is the preparation around that. So I want to say to the public that it can find comfort from a government standpoint, while not perfect, that we are doing the necessary things to be able to get the ball rolling. And the transformation would not be immediate. 3 years in, the transformation would not be immediate. Secondly, from a party standpoint, the same criticism that exists today existed when we won the election. Now the circumstance, I think I saw Ms. Margaret asking a question. Why did the NDC win? Is it that the people loved NDC or they hated the former administration?
Well, hate is a very strong word, but
well, disliked.
No, but yes, please. We should not hate our political opponents.
Correct. Yeah. So the point is, after assessing that, it will help us to determine whether or not we should spend the time building the machinery or get the individual candidates, MPs, ministers, etc., on the ground, building the relationship. There are two things at play. Now, I'm saying this, though, Dr. Pierre, this is my own personal observation of the spike, so to speak, in the NNP on social media, is that you can actually have the spike, but it is not for the right sets of reasons that say they are putting forward policies and positions that people are gravitating to. The spike merely could be that they want to hear what the criticisms are. For example, the jokes. I could tell you, last election, a lot of NDC supporters, while at NDC rallies, would join the NNP rallies online so they could see who make a mistake, what is being said, some of the kicksy things that makes memes, etc. So the interest could also be influenced by some of that aspect, not necessarily to say that it is going to convert to votes, because I want to say this. Your assessment also said earlier on, I think last year, before Hurricane Beryl, that a number of people are registering the top 3 or 4 constituencies, and NDC is ahead. So the point is, there is still much to gain if we extrapolate your assessment and your data. And we are doing just that. Mind you, we wouldn't get everything right. And so I want to make it clear, Brother Williams, as the PRO of the party, I hear you and I accept your observation and your genuine criticism. I hear that because it is part of the process of learning. So we're not going to dismiss any of that. I think in the past there was a hardline approach to say, well, to hell with what you're saying there, we're doing what we have to do. But this Congress administration is one that listens. We may not be the first to come out and say you're right, but I can tell you that we do listen. So we want to accept whatever genuine criticism that exists there. But all hope is not lost with the National Democratic Congress. And I am confident that when the general elections is called, the NDC would be able to break this curse of one term, and Grenada will benefit significantly from it. Mark my words.
Well,
you
I
decree
don't
and
know.
declare.
I don't know if I'm giving the floor.
Yes, brother.
I don't know that anything that we say this morning he was capable of predicting the results of the elections. We are engaged. We are not saying X is going to win and Y is going to lose.
I agree.
Analyzing the thing.
Well, I am saying it as a PRO.
We are saying to you, brother, here's the rule of thumb. If you don't fix or correct the things that are not right and are not good, then you will face the consequence. That is for you to resolve yourself about.
And remember that, Dr. Bob, Brother Joseph, we're not there to criticize the NNP, or the NDC. I'm not there to criticize the NDC. What I am there as an outsider, as someone who applied science, psephology, rather than just feelings. We apply science, we apply econometric modeling, to data, to science, so what is taking place. And what we would require is that, as you mentioned, Honorable Redhead, all is not lost. You need to, take what we're giving you and come back home and, do better. That's all we're asking to do. But as at this stage, as of June the 15th, the NDC can and should do better in terms of its governance. Yes, it has done a lot. However, we believe that it can do better, and the people are saying that it can do better. And that's what we always say. All is not lost.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, Mr. Joseph, you wanted to add something, and I'll just
and just to say quickly,
comments.
And the doing better is a function of capacity. A, B, it's a function of attitude. C, it's a function of how you treat people. That's it. And perhaps you could add D, the extent to which you build relationships with the people. It's not about bricks and mortar. It's not that.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, this has been a very spirited, mature. I will echo the sentiment of one Brenda Lee Johnson James, emotionally intelligent. Thanks, Brenda Lee, for calling me emotionally intelligent. So I want to, but Mr. Redhead, in closing, what's going to happen with the St. Andrew Northwest seat? Who's going to be contesting that seat? Is it going to be Sister Delma Thomas or Sister Gloria Thomas? What's going to happen there?
Right. Well, the party
the
has
party
a
decided?
structure. Yeah, the party has a structure that it is going to employ, which is that they would go through a process, series of polls, among other things. Everyone will get a fair shot to be able to assess, and then a decision is going to be made on the final.
Well, I really look forward to see what that's going.
Wow.
What's going to play.
What you're going to do, Minister? A process?
Well, yeah, but Mr. Pear, but Dr. Pear, the party does have a
no. You see, so you're right. So it's well spelled out in its function in terms of and again, now this is for the I would say quote unquote the election committee in the party to sort out. So I cannot make a determination whether I like X or Y, and to say openly. There is a process that it will entail, and that is true for all. That is true for all. Because at the end of the day, we need to win the seat. It's not emotions. We need data. We can't decide. Yeah, we can't decide just for the fact of it. We have to win the seat.
Mr. Joseph, maybe you could just comment.
Well, yeah. So hold on. We have to close the segment. Honorable Ron Redhead, over to you, sir, for some closing comments on your maiden post-election appearance on the Bubb Report.
Yeah,
I can't say that enough. Go ahead, sir.
well, thank you, Dr. Bob. It's a pleasure to engage with these two distinguished gentlemen. I think, by and large, it is part of the process of politics, and the criticisms, the observations, the pointers are well taken. In fact, I wrote down, maybe I'm seeing here about 12 of them, and it is something that I believe can be expanded as we go forward. My own opinion is that we're about where we were around 2022, notwithstanding that the sentiment generally is that we want more, we need to see more. The expectation is always high once young people are giving opportunities, especially to lead. People expect them to be transformative, and so we work with that pressure on our shoulders, so to speak, but it's something that we signed up for. We are aware of it, and we are committed to ensuring that whatever the gray areas are, that we correct it and get it right.
Absolutely. Honorable Ron Redhead, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report. William Joseph, I will go over to you for some closing comments. Your sparring partner is not here today, but rest assured there will be another opportunity for my cousin, Michael Batiste, to be with you. Yes, we are related. Michael Batiste is actually from Primrose in St. David originally.
Right,
it doesn't say that, but yes, but he's a St. David's man. So he might be running against Deacon, you never know. But go ahead for closing comments.
Yeah, I would say that I hope that the party understands that it needs to have a theory of the political case. It must build for itself a theory of the political case. There are forces in this politics in Grenada that you have to get a hold of and understand thoroughly. I'll give you one example very briefly. Poor people in Grenada do not vote to a pattern. The poor man in St. George South does not vote in the same way or in a similar way to the poor man in St. Andrew Northeast. So we need to understand what's going on there. We need also to understand, as I said in the NDC, that we live in an era where the selfie culture, that selfie culture is dominant with a significant demographic in the electorate. So that there is no issue, whereas 50 years you had charisma and loyalty and so on. That's not the basis in which they engage in the politics today. So you have to come to terms with that reality. The vote has become mobile. People make judgments as they go along. And if today they figure, listen, we give you a chance and you mess up, people must always be led. We were built to be led. So that's why I say to you finally, and concluding, what you don't fix or correct could lead to your demise. Thank you so much, my brother Bob and colleague panelists.
Yes, and Dr. Pear, over to you, sir, for some closing comments.
Good. As I said, it was a pleasure speaking to everyone, and thank you, listeners, for having us. In closing, I just want to say that we wish, and I wish, success to both the NDC and the NNP and all the other political parties. In closing, if I were to make a recommendation, first of all, I would like the NDC to rebuild its grassroots infrastructure. Okay, they also need to rebrand the NDC with new community strategy. That is very important. We also need to. The NDC has to establish a permanent national headquarters. So that should be done very, very quickly. Invest in political education. Go out there to start recruiting new members. I also believe that they have to stop over fixation on Dr. Keith Mitchell and the NNP. I think the NDC is guilty of that. And what we are also asking is for consultation, public consultation. Give us information. Not in a
well. To be fair, Dr. Pierre, the government does have town hall meetings, and they may consider that as consultation. I'm just playing devil's advocate there.
I mean, to the minds of the people, it's really not. Okay. And as I said, that we want the NDC to do well. I think there is a lot of hope there. We also want all of the other political parties to do well, and we believe that the good thing we have is that the Prime Minister has very high likability rating, very, very, very high, and this is not going away. 3 years, it has still remained above,
above 60%, yeah,
65%, and that is unusual for a Caribbean leader. Okay, and we want that. That's true. We hope that this will continue. And finally, we also are asking the Prime Minister to really, we need to know who your advisors are. You may not know everything, but have consensus. Let people give you advice, okay? And that's it. And as I said, I want to thank everybody for listening to me, and to the viewers, to the naysayers. I am not against the NDC or against the NP.
Well, Dr. Penn, everything that you do, not everyone will be happy with what you do. Every week I get criticism on this.
And lastly, so far, with God's grace, we have never been wrong.
Well, that's the point.
This is important.
Accurately predicted elections.
People have reached out into Jamaica, St. Vincent, Turks and Caicos, all the other places. And as I said, we're not doing that for money. I am very interested in this type of work, and that's why anyone can call me. I'm there. I provide advice to anyone. So that's it. So once again,
absolutely,
thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Yes, panel, thank you so very much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. This was a very spirited and very dense conversation as the NDC is on the cusp of celebrating its 3-year anniversary. So we want to thank the panelists for engaging in this deep dive conversation. There were a lot of other issues that we did not have the opportunity to get to. There were many questions that we didn't have the opportunity to get to, so we do apologize for that. But certainly we hope viewers and listeners that you were able to take away some very important perspectives from this very robust conversation today. So thank you all for appearing on the program. Viewers and listeners, this has been a very spirited segment. We have one final segment. We're really going over time today, but we want to give the folks in Concord, St. John, a quick 10 minutes here to speak to. So if Ms. Hines can turn her camera on, we have Ms. Nautica Hines, who is joining us here from Concord in St. John. Ms. Hines, welcome to the Bubb Report. Thank you for being so patient. Some breaking news overnight caused us to move your segment later, but before the program closes, we thought it was necessary and important for us to get to you. So when you reached out to us, you indicated that there is an issue happening up there in Concord, St. John, in the vicinity of the Concord waterfall, and that has to do with a project that NAWASA recently signed with the CCI construction company. And that project is expected to start soon. Of course, we'll be doing a follow-up on that story next week with the other parties involved. That's NAWASA and CCCI. But we want to hear what your concerns are with respect to that project in Concord and how that may impact the tourism product up there in Concord, St. John, which is, of course, the Concord waterfall.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes.
Well, basically, our main issue is what's going to be happening up there with the water. Mainly is what's going to be happening up there with the water. You see, previously, we sent you photos of how the waterfall used to be before and how it was after they dammed it. Yes. So presently, NAWASA was engaging a major project, which they're going to be taking more water from that waterfall. We are saying we are in the tourist area. This is the only tourist belt in St. John's. There is no other tourist attraction in St. John's. So if NAWASA then comes to take more water from that waterfall, we will have no waterfall. In the dry season, we barely have water running down that road. We are trying to say to them also, you need to consult us properly. The vendors, the farmers, the community on a whole. You need to let us aware of what's going on. Okay? So that's our main issue.
So stick a pin. Before this project was announced, you're saying that you were not consulted by the National Water and Sewage Authority.
Now, we wouldn't say that. In November last year, NAWASA sent the liaison officer, Rudo, and Mr. John to let us know that the project is about to start. Yeah, they lend their concern, we lend our concern concerning the same water, which they say they will get back to us, but they have not gotten back to us concerning anything concerning the EIA or what it was done or what is the impact going to be. On that note,
stick a pin. Do you even know if did they advise you as to whether or not an EIA was done there?
Okay, concerning the EIA, they said one was done in 2022. Yeah, we only recently learned that because when the consultant and the contractor came, to say that they got the contract and it was about to start, we were asking those questions. Yeah.
Okay, so it's only after they came to you and said this project is starting that you knew of an EIA.
Yeah, we have not even gotten a look at the EIA. We have not even get a result to say if that EIA still stand as we in 2025, and there is so much happening with climate change, with the decline of the water. So all of this we have in concern.
So can you talk about that project? Are they going to, is it a dam that's going to be constructed? Is that an expansion of the current water catchment? Or what is it?
Yes, it will be an expansion of the water catchment, which will lessen the water to the dam, because presently they have an 18-inch line on that water, on the dam. Yeah, the overflow of that water will be too less to even have a waterfall. They're saying to NAWASA, we have no problem with you guys getting water, but could you guys merge some other place? Could you just keep taking what you all taking and do a proper storage? Because basically we will not have a waterfall. The other issue we are having is that they have not consulted the vendors. They have not consulted the farmers. They have not consulted the community to know that how that's going to impact us on our livelihood and the transportation wise going to and from our farm.
Right.
So basically, when we heard of the contract was being signed, we reached out to the Board of Tourism. Board of Tourism authorized us to send our concern through a letter with the few names that we have up by the waterfall. But we have decided this 14 of us is not enough. So we went out to the community on Friday trying to figure out, is anybody know about this? Was this properly announced? Was this properly community communication? Yeah, 95% of the population in this area and beyond, Brooklyn, Cotton Valley, did not know about this project.
90%. So no one was aware of this.
No,
so you only got wind of this when NAWASA notified you of their intention to start constructing after signing the contract with CCCI.
Yes, and CCCI did manager or whatever did come, and there was question we were asking that he was saying you have to ask Nawasa. He cannot answer that. The two main questions we were asking is our sustainability. How are we going to be sustained? What is the duration of the timing that you guys are going to be laying pipes? This is in the rainy season. We are in the belt of rain. Concord is basically underneath the Grande Tan. Yeah? So we know this. If the project was esteemed to start for 8 months, it might go beyond 8 months. But they're not giving answers. That's the problem we're having.
So what would be your next steps here? You said you've canvassed the community. Did you also reach out to the Member of Parliament? Because, of course, in the context of St. John, there were also concerns. There are also concerns with the Woodford project, where in the context of the Woodford project, with the Reno construction, we saw there that the Reno company, they essentially disregarded physical planning mandates with respect to the construction of that quarry. I believe a quarry is what they're constructing there. Members of the community were not even aware of what was happening there. And when members of the community raised those concerns with Reno, they just pretty much ignored them. And then, of course, community members in Woodford St. John were saying that when they reached out to the MP at the time initially said that she was not aware of what was happening there because it was a private project and things like that. In the case of what's happening in Concord, this is not a private project, one. And two, this is being done by the state, by a statutory body, really, NAWASA, which is part of the state administrative mechanism. So have you consulted with the Member of Parliament? What will be your next steps here in raising your concerns beyond NAWASA?
Okay, we have decided not to make it political, so we did not reach out to a parliamentary representative. But on a whole, as humans, if she see it, we ask that she reach out to us, come to the community and find out what's going on. We didn't just want to make it political because everything in Grenada seems to be political, but this is not about politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said that. I'm really glad you said that because everything is seen through a political lens, which quite frankly is so off-putting. That is why on my personal social media, I do not even comment on Grenadian politics anymore. It's really, really off-putting. But go ahead, please.
Okay, but our next step is that we went out to the community on Friday. We got more than 150 names, sign a petition. We asking us that we mightn't be able to stop them from doing the project, but we need answers. We need major answers. Our next step, we went out to the media. They came on Friday, and yesterday afternoon, CCIL sent out little pamphlet. Only yesterday we discovered they are sending out little pamphlet through the villages saying that they're going to be doing a major construction. We still haven't gotten the answers. The answer is, what is going to become of the waterfall, number one. The second answer is, who is going to sustain the vendors up there? What is going to happen to the farmers? How are they going to go to and fro the farms? That is our major issue. The other issue I am having is that I know basically a couple of years ago, NAWASA was interested in a piece of land that I am personally in care of. They wanted to purchase the land, and they have not reached out to us since 2018. Now that piece of land is a major stakeholder in that project. In that project, they're about to do that expansion. They need that piece of land in order to do the equipment passing and everything. They still have not reached out to us.
Certainly.
So we want relevant authorities to come on board with us, answer our questions, mainly who is going to sustain us, what is going to happen to the waterfall. That is our main issue. We're not trying to stop progress. We cannot stop progress. We are in Concord, we believe in progress. Yeah? But that is not how it is. They need to reach out to us on a community level, on a farmer's level, on a business holder level. They need to reach out to us and give us answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the folks who are saying, who is this woman? She's a Grenadian who's resident in Concord, who's concerned about what's happening in her community. That's all that is. And that is why we, we talk tourism and tourism product. But if there is no waterfall to go to, what kind of tourism product are we really speaking? Ms. Hines, is there anything else you wish to add?
I wish to say to everyone, this is basically, again, not about politics. This is about the livelihood of many. This is about the devastation of the waterfall. This is about our community, which we have been giving NAWASA so much water over the last few years. We had one incident in the last 3 or 4 months where the water was going to the line straight. Most of our community, people up at the mountain roads was disconnected. They were disconnected because the pressure of the line was pushing the water. In all the years, nobody have paid that amount of money. Now, I still insist that we had to pay our reconnection fee, over $240 security fee. For what reason? So the poor people in that area who just had to pay $40 on a monthly basis now was expanded to $100 and something, plus you got to pay the reconnection fee, plus you got to pay that security of $240 for what? They did not budge. They did not come and say, okay, we will do reimbursement. We need now also to do something better than that. That is my take.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, please God, we are out on the street with our placard and whatever we got to do at 7 o'clock at the junction, letting NAWASA know that we will not allow the pipes to come up to Concord unless they allow us proper consultation.
And of course, you also access to the EIA that they said they did, which they did not.
Yes, we need that. Well, because a lot of things has happened over the 2 years, 3 years with climate change. So this EIA from 2 or 3 years ago cannot stand now with the devastation of how the water have been dropped. Now, I start drain Annadale Waterfall. Annadale Waterfall now is like a peeing waterfall in the dry season. We're not allowing NAWASA to do that to us. Come out, we're not trying to stop progress. We are trying to be fair. Everybody need water. Water is life. That's our take.
And on that note, water is life. Yes, we will also be following up with that story because here on the Bubb Report, we have always had a reputation of addressing environmental issues going all the way back to the previous administration. This is something we've been very consistent about with respect to what was happening in Livera, with respect to what's happening in Lassages, with the developments there, with respect to what is happening now in Woodford and Bouchejoux, and now with what's happening in Concord. So this is not something that we are not new to this, but we are true to this in respect of our environmental reporting. So we will be following up with NAWASA on this. So Ms. Jamila Lewis, who I know is the PRO of NAWASA, I will be reaching out to you to get your side of the story because, of course, all sides need to be ventilated in this matter. And maybe Ms. Hines, we might have a follow-up with you, so please look out for that as well once we contact NAWASA and CCCI. So thank you for appearing on the report this week.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, this has been a marathon today. And let me also publicly apologize to our partners over there at WPG10, Mr. Hamlet Mark and others, and your team for having such a very long program today. The program is almost 3 hours today. And certainly it reminds me of George Grant, Vintage. Sundays with George Grant was also a 3-hour program. But certainly we want to thank all of you for tuning in to the program. Those of you over on YouTube, the almost 500 of you over on YouTube, please do us a favor by liking and subscribing to our YouTube page so that the algorithm can forward and share that program to others who did not have an opportunity. We want to thank all of the guests who appeared on the program earlier, in addition to Ms. Hines, who was the last guest today, and for all of you and for all of your participation and contribution. I am your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb, thanking all of you for watching the Bubb Report. Of course, we have actually a surprise blockbuster program for you next week, an exclusive interview. We will not let the cat out of the bag until we get to that point. But we have an exclusive interview with an interesting Grenadian next week. So please look out for that conversation right here on the Bubb Report. So on behalf of our producers, I'm your humble host again, Dr. Kellen Bubb, thanking you all for watching this week's edition of the program. We'll see you next week for another installment of the Bubb Report. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bubb Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.